Howdy, I'm Jonathan Alvarez, and I was in charge of the East Texas Framework Phasing Plan. These phasing plans, as you can see, are proposed changes that can be introduced to the East Texas region and will be explained as we further discuss at length the benefits they can bring. The first issue we will discuss is the infrastructure and evacuation transportation that I have designed. To begin with, we will first look at the evacuation route from Houston to its destination of Wichita. East Texas has a variety of major cities noted for their economic and cultural significance to not just the state, but to the country as a whole. Other major cities located within the East Texas region are the metropolises of Houston and Dallas. Houston itself is often noted for its difficult time with hurricanes and the flooding that often follows. This is a trend that has worsened throughout the year. Most recently, Hurricane Harvey, which some families are still reeling from. Evacuation needs to be a top priority for these people and the surrounding communities near Houston. With a high-speed railway, this will allow people to evacuate safely and reach the city of their choice. In addition, the high-speed railway is an investment for the future. Rising sea levels will begin to encroach onto inland cities, and the worst-case scenario is that Texas will lose more than 75% of their land by the year 2100. A high-speed railway is not discriminatory and will not favor those people in the key cities of Dallas, Houston, and College Station, but will also be accompanied by revitalization of Texas infrastructure, which will include new routes to the cities with the railway, but also foster stronger connections with the other cities of East Texas. The phasing map for transportation shows that if we do not maintain our roads, they will slowly but surely collapse by the year 2100, and that collapse will become more significant by the year 2050. Connections between those cities will be lost. However, if we do manage to maintain our roads and introduce the bullet train by 2035, we will be well on our way to maintain a more connected Texas. By 2050, the network of bullet trains will be further expanded on and go further beyond the East Texas region to include other cultural and economic significant cities. By 2100, Texas will move on to the latest methods of transportation, which will be air taxis, and further establish stronger connections with not just cities within the state, but further beyond. Moving on, we need to address what East Texas can do to combat rising sea levels. Galveston is noted for the seawall and their various flood prevention methods. As such, it would be wise to expand on this and establish these methods on the coast and in cities prone to flooding to help better protect them, such as Houston or Beaumont. By 2050, these methods in urban areas will be further expanded on with floodable plazas to help contain the water and buy people more time to escape further inland. By 2100, East Texas will be slightly submerged, but the floodable plazas from the last phasing plan will be retrofitted to reclaim and regain areas from the sea. The rise of sea levels will disrupt the monarch butterfly migration route. As you can see, East Texas is often the primary route for these butterflies, and the rise of sea levels will decimate their population if we do not act. It is possible to redirect them and push them towards an area that will not be at risk. To do this, monarch butterfly gardens need to be introduced to push them in a direction that sees them go away from the coast. This needs to be implemented by at least the year 2035 or beforehand. By 2050, these gardens will need to be better protected as sea levels will continue to rise. To help protect these gardens, they will be domed off and will be accessible by caretakers to help maintain the gardens and evaluate the health of the butterfly population within. By 2100, if all the changes are met, we will slowly release the butterfly population in a controlled manner to gauge their health and their response on the new environment they live within. In conclusion, the East Texas region is the first and last line of defense for the state. We need to introduce policy changes and structures to reflect this. The major cities of the East Texas region need to be better connected, and from them, the rest of the cities of Texas will follow this new connection. Those major cities of Dallas and Houston are currently undergoing a period of heavy development, and as landscape architects, we need to be able to re-influence those cities while they are still redeveloping and redefining themselves. During this presentation, my fellow teammates of Austin Partula, Justin Carver, Drew Durkee, and Matt Teague have all pushed ideas and policies which will be able to protect the residents of East Texas and how they will be impacted and what those new changes will mean to them. I've been Jonathan Alvarez, and I thank you so much for your attention.
So me and Justin did task 2. So for my portion, I conducted 3 GIS surveys and site analyses to determine which site was most suitable for our proposed infrastructure. The first study of which looks at the floodplain of Texas for a 100-year 24-hour storm. Below is a color coordinated key showing how much precipitation each area of Texas would receive during a storm of this caliber. As you can see, flood risks are significantly higher as you get further east and closer to the coast and Gulf of Mexico. So as far as East Texas go, Palestine, Texas, which is represented by the red star on the graphic, is on the lower end of the spectrum for flood risks. Our site right now would receive around 11 to 11.5 inches of rain from a 100-year storm. So the second study I conducted was an in-depth soil survey of Anderson County, which is the county that Palestine, Texas is located in. This shows a soil distribution of the area, and just to give you all a little info, Curvin or sandy soils are well-drained soils when it comes to storms, and Pluck or Traywick soils drain poorly and are not best for larger developments and infrastructure. So we chose to place our launch site on an area with the best drained sandy soil in the area to prevent against flood risks and potential erosion. So the star, the blue star, it represents downtown Palestine, and the red square is our proposed launch site, just right there on the left. And the third and final survey I did was an in-depth analysis of the current transportation options Texas has to offer. So this map shows all the major transportation hubs in relation to our site, which is located again by the red star. As you can see, there are 6 airports, 3 of which are international, and 5 seaports within close proximity. And I determined ports and airports within an hour-and-a-half drive as close proximity, but with a rail system, these transit times would be cut in half easily. So our proposed site is built within 10 miles of a major interstate as well, Highway 45. It's a major roadway that goes through Houston and Dallas, all the way up through Oklahoma and the Great Plains. It's one of the largest highways in the United States. And we placed our site directly in the middle of Houston and Dallas, right off this highway, to ensure easy access for both of those large metropolitan populations. It is also built directly adjacent to a major series of railroads, as you can see on the map. These railroad routes could be later on converted to above or below ground high-speed rails. And this is a final suitability analysis that compiles all the data from the 3 studies I conducted and shows a comprehensive graphic of which counties in Texas are most suitable for the infrastructure of this magnitude. So our final site is built just to the west of Palestine, Texas, about 5 miles outside, and is directly in between the major metropolitan areas of Dallas, Fort Worth, and Houston. It is built in an area of Texas that doesn't flood as bad and as often as other areas in the state, and is strategically placed on a sandy soil base to prevent stormwater buildup. It is in close proximity to several major airports, 3 of which are international, and is close to a major railroad network. It is also within driving distance of 4 major seaports as well.
Our proposed evacuation hub is located on the existing airport in Palestine. We propose to create 4 domes, each incorporating our proposed prototypes with bioretention cell, living wall, green roofs, and riparian zone inside each dome, and launch pads that can also float out if in case of flooding outside the domes. The main dome is located on the top of Ann County Road, which is existing road, to supply efficient transportation. We also have the low point of the site where it would form into as a body of water and act as a riparian zone. And then next is an in-depth look at the domes. The dome has a protective layer that protects from solar flares. The dome is also able to open in case of, or for ideal weather. Transportation is modeled after European cities with the goal to promote alternative transportation. Each building incorporates green infrastructure with pollinator plants to promote migration. Overall, the goal is to create an evacuation hub that is sustainable and walkable environment for humans. And here's a perspective of a bioretention cell connected to a green wall. And as I just listed off some of the benefits for it, where it would take in a lot of the toxins like from the rainwater and then release a lot of oxygen out into the soil. And then also there's a 35% decrease impermeable area from the calculator that I used, the environmental calculator. And then it would also have $135,000 annual green benefits. And here's a perspective of the green roof, which will also have the same benefits, basically. But it also have 50% capability of removing stormwater runoff. And then it can also be capable of lowering the roof from a typical roof to the now green roof. Will lower it to around 30 to 40 degrees Fahrenheit. And then here's the perspective of a riparian zone. And the riparian zone would do also the same thing, but I also have these little like steps to help get people closer to the water and just to have a place to relax and enjoy for individuals. And then here's a phasing plan of what would happen whenever, in case of flooding. And it just shows how each hub and launch pad will eventually float, so that in case if it does flood, everyone will still be inside their hubs and be able to evacuate later on.
This is Matthew Teague and Andrew Durkee working on the City of Equality. So this city was designed with the idea of equal rights for all the people who live within it, with equal spacing from job sites to residential areas and evacuation hub. No citizen will have a better outcome while living here. It also demonstrates a train system for transportation rather than cars, so that there's not a large amount of cars that flood through the city. Every point in this system and in this plan was within walking distance of each other. So this really creates equality and opportunity for every person to walk to wherever they need to go. On the right, we have a perspective of what we envision to be our train station perspective. And then we have a perspective of our bike city perspective, which envisions and illustrates what we design as bikes to flow through rather than cars. And on the bottom right, we have our launch pad cross section, which shows in the event of an evacuation, what our launch pad would look like. As we continue our research and analyze the specific location, we divided it into three different major aspects. Looking at Dodge City, we wanted to look at flooding, first of all, the major, moderate, and minor flooding within the state of Kansas. And so Dodge City is located where there's minor and low risk flooding, which is suitable in the long term for this site-specific location. Next was precipitation map, which illustrates that Dodge City is kind of in the middle, where there would be good precipitation, not too much, not too little. And then the last thing would be the soil survey that we analyzed for Dodge City, which shows the major soil types throughout Kansas. And within Dodge City, it would be the Cherno Zone, which is a fast draining, very good growing soil for the crops, which was a plus for us. So in analyzing all three of these, we put them together to create our suitability analysis. And ultimately, we decided on this location, Dodge City, to implement our design. Thank you very much.